I'm going to show you how to use linear perspective to turn two-dimensional shapes into three-dimensional forms. So I've got my sketchbook, I've got a piece of paper, I've got an eraser just in case, I've got my pencil sharpener handy, and I've also got a straight edge. I know some folks received a ruler in your art kits, so this is a great time to use that if that's something you have. Otherwise, you can use anything that has like a hard edge. Sometimes I use like a piece of cardstock or like a piece of paper as a straight edge, which totally works for this assignment. So I'm going to start halfway down my piece of paper, and I'm just going to draw a straight line. That's what we call our horizon line. And right in the middle of my piece of paper, I'm going to draw my vanishing point. That's a great place to start for drawing perspective. It helps with guidelines, and you'll see what we're going to do with them in a second. So now I'm going to draw my shapes. You can draw any shape you want. The simpler, the easier it's going to be, but you can totally challenge yourself with some more challenging shapes. So I'm going to start with just a square, and I'm going to add a triangle, and then I'm going to add a circle. And underneath my horizon line, I'm going to get a little more complicated. I'm going to do a star. And then over here, I'm going to do an S to represent the initial of my first name. So make sure it's thick, like we don't want to do any thin lines here. And these are my shapes. If you guys could do 5, that would be great. It's a really simple activity, so doing more for practice is good. Then I'm going to bring back my straight edge over here. So starting with my rectangle, I'm going to line up each corner with my vanishing point, and you guys should use really thin, like soft lines for this. These are called working lines. And you can erase them later. So the lighter, the better. It's just a guideline. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that back to my vanishing point, and then this corner, and then finally the top corner. Then so right now my box goes on forever. It's infinity going to space. So I need to add a line to show where the end is. And this is going to be a parallel line. So it should be exactly even with the bottom of your box. We do not want any like crooked or diagonal lines here. So it should be parallel to this edge of your box and also to your horizon line. And I'm just going to choose where I want my box to end. And then I have to do the same thing on this side. So connecting this side, I'm going to draw a completely up and down vertical line that's parallel with this edge of the box. And then I'm going to go back in and make my working line a little bit thicker so I can really see the definition of my box. And then this is where you can use your shading skills, and that's going to give it a three-dimensional effect. And then you're going to do this for all of your shapes. So a circle is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to choose the left edge of my circle, draw a very light line, going back, and everything goes back to that one vanishing point. And then I'm going to end my circle, so I want to follow that same exact shape that's right there, and then that's where I can add my value and make it look like a three-dimensional circle. And same for my triangle over here. top line goes back to the vanishing point edge. And then that one's going to be really low. And then I'm going to figure out where I want to end the shape. And then I'm going to add my shading techniques, my value scale, to make that triangle look three-dimensional. And then it's the same exact thing for these shapes underneath the horizon line, but we're going to go up to the vanishing point rather than down. So the star is a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to go back to the vanishing point. And I'm also going to do not the points, but like these little interior pieces, I guess, as well. So it's going to have kind of a lot of lines. Sometimes I like to flip my paper. So that's going to help me figure out how to do the star shape here. So this one's going to be a little bit more complicated, but for every line, that's where you're going to turn. So remember, parallel lines, and then this one's going to be parallel to that. So I want to follow that star shape, and then it goes there, and then this one's going to be parallel over here. That one's like a little complicated. And then over here, it's also going to end. And I'll color that in so you can see it better. That is how I do my three-dimensional star. And then I have my most complicated shape over here, which is an S, and it's going to be very similar to your star-shaped one. So I'm going to follow that S curve. I want it to match exactly, and it's going to kind of disappear. That component inside there is good. So you can kind of use your artistic perspective to make sure that it looks three-dimensional. So the biggest things to remember is that all of your lines should be parallel. We don't want any wonky diagonals, and use your best to shade in to make it look three-dimensional. And then you should end up with something like this at the end. You do not need to erase your working lines. You can leave them.